What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V, and it is very early on August 3rd, 2025 when I am recording this, and I am bringing you yet another player spotlight on Colorado high school athletes. This time we're talking about girls flag football here, and we got a pretty good group that we're going to talk about. All of these players were underclassmen last year, and I think all of them except for one will be underclassmen this upcoming season here in 2025 as well. And so that's going to be really exciting to talk about. I want to go ahead and address something real quick before we hop into this episode, though. If you've seen our note on social media, you know that we will not be covering boys and girls football this season unless CHSAA changes their guidelines, and there is no compromise on that. And so it's disappointing, but we're going to do our best to continue these previews, continue releasing our watch list here, and obviously with all these players, we're going to do what we can to continue to get their names out there. It's just going to look a little bit different this season and maybe even the future seasons. But with all that being said, on this episode, we are going to preview every single player here. We're going to talk about last year, what they did in the first year of flag football being sanctioned by CHSAA, and then we're going to talk about some strengths, areas of improvement, and whatnot, and then we'll talk about, I don't think any of these players have offers, so we're just not going to mention that, but we're going to talk about some big games this upcoming season where you can watch them go compete, where, you know, they could potentially earn some offers if they have a big game in these. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and hop into our first player spotlight. Oh, and I almost forgot, before I do, appreciate all the support and love we've been getting the past couple of days. We were going to try to work through to get replies to everyone, but appreciate it a lot. Okay, now the first player we're going to talk about will be the only upperclassman, I believe, going into this 2025 campaign, and it is the athlete out of Arapahoe, Taylor Bradley, rusher, linebacker, receiver for them last year, super versatile athlete, also played for Lace Up Jr. in the spring here. But let's just go ahead and look at her stats real quick. So last season, her first season of flag football as a sophomore, had 70 receptions for an efficient 725 yards and 12 touchdowns. Defensively, solid as well. 28 tackles, 5 sacks, and 25 hurries. Talking about some of her bigger games from the season, I think the most yards she got in a game was against Heritage. A very tough and close game that Arapahoe won in an absolute thriller of a game that went to overtime. In that 19-18 game, she had 7 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown. Those 7 receptions would be tied for her season high. She would have 7 2 other times against Columbine and then against Grandview as well. As far as receiving yards go, that is the most she had in a season. Her second most would be against Rock Canyon, which was, I would say, also her second best game in the regular season. At least statistically, she had 6 receptions for 104 yards and the hat trick, 3 touchdowns in that game. Defensively, I mean, she had some solid games against Cherry Creek. She had 2 sacks, 5 hurries. That's always a good thing there to see her being productive. Also had a season high in flagpoles with 6. So love to see that against a team like Creek with a quarterback like Addie Beck, who we talked about on the last player spotlight episode 473. Make sure you check that one out there. So to get a couple of sacks and stats in that one is huge. Now, in the playoffs, Arapahoe unfortunately going one and done. They would play Chatfield, and it was a pretty close one. There was a score at the end of the game that made this one seem like a lot more than what it actually was, but it was a very close game, and unfortunately, they lost 27-13, the first-year program, losing to a program that's been around for 3 years and actually won state a couple years ago when it was first starting out, but still. And against Chatfield, Taylor had 8 receptions, 66 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Defensively, not doing too much there. Did get a pass deflection Or actually, no, that's from the regular season game. Did not see too much there defensively, actually, in that game. So, unfortunate there, but, still a very good season for a first-year player, and she's a great athlete that is just getting started. Now, let's go ahead and do our little film breakdown here, talking about some of her strengths, some things that we hope to see her improve on going into next season, into her junior year. But I think strengths right off the bat is that she has next level speed and acceleration. I think she's also pretty dangerous in space as well, pretty nifty agility wise, and could make people miss. When she gets the ball in her hands, I think she is a home run hitter as far as touchdowns go. You just got to feed her the football and she's going to make things happen. And so that athleticism is definitely something that separates her from other players around the state, and I think this year she could be due for a big-time breakout season, unless you didn't count last year as a breakout season, but I think it would be even bigger in her junior year. She also has decent enough hands, very reliable there, and then she's very versatile too as a flag football player, moved around on defense, playing linebacker, rusher. I think this year she'll be used a little bit more as rusher, and that's just inside information I have, but she's going to be used to the best of their ability over there. She'll play both ways, and I think having that speed out there definitely helps Arapahoe and will help them win a couple more games this season. Now, some areas of improvement. You got to remember this is basically a first-year player we're talking about here. Last season was the first season for Arapahoe as a program, and so there's going to be things that, just more experienced flag football players have that other players who haven't played the long just have to figure out as life goes on, as the season goes on. And so I think the one thing that I really noticed is I was able to watch the Chatfield playoff game again here, is that as a rusher, I would like to see her just be a little bit more efficient and just improve her general game awareness as well here, especially on defense. I think there were times she lost track of the quarterback or she just did not retrace, and I think she could just be a little bit more efficient as a rusher. I think she has the athleticism to be an elite one, but just finding her way, being an efficient defender and causing chaos in the backfield would really go a long way in making her a legit two-way player that could play on the next level both ways, right? And so we'll see if she can continue to improve on that. And then as a receiver, would just love to see crisper routes, more head fakes, better plants. I mean, just want to see her continue to create separation. We know that she has great athleticism and whatnot, so she's going to outrun, players and just be faster out of breaks. But I think you could definitely still clean up these breaks here, be a lot crisper, run these routes well, not just when you're getting the ball, but all the time, right? You want to give these defenders something to think about on every single route, and making these routes look very similar to each other and being efficient with the way that you're running all of these routes, because you never know, right? And so would definitely love to see that improve. And she got better as the season went on last year, I will admit that. Got to watch her play in the Heritage game. I believe the next time I would see them play, I want to say, was against, at least the second half, against Chatfield in the regular season. And then I want to also say I saw a little bit of that Rock Canyon game as well. And then, like I said, I just rewatched that Chatfield versus Arapahoe playoff game, and she got better as the season goes on. I know her playing with Lace Up, shout out Coach Rio and Lacey over there, she's going to continue to improve. She has continued to improve and whatnot there, but that's just me nitpicking, to be honest with you. We'll see what happens. As of right now, no offers. She will be going into her junior year. And honestly, I don't expect offers for any underclassmen or even juniors, really. And so, with that being said, I think going into her junior year, there are some big games that she wants to have a good game in, whether it's offensively, defensively, ideally both, to earn some of those offers. And I think there's some great opportunities, starting with the Crystal Cup, August 23rd, Saturday. They're going to play Heritage and Littleton, I believe. Heritage is obviously a rivalry game there, and they have lost a couple players, but I think if you're Taylor Bradley, you want to have a huge game against your rival right there and continue to keep that cup if possible. You really don't want to lose a rivalry game to start the season. Let's just say that. Then, soon after, they played the defending 5A state champions in Mountain Vista. As a defensive player, we're really going to see, what she's made of against arguably the greatest scrambling quarterback in the country right now. As far as flag football goes, she might even be better than some college players right now in Ariana Akey. And so that's going to be a challenge in its own, right? But if Taylor Bradley has worked hard over the offseason and whatnot, I think it's going to be very noticeable how well she does in that game or doesn't do in a game like that. And then offensively, whenever you play a team like Mountain Vista, you could expect a shootout here. Her quarterback, Whitney Folger, last year, little bit of a gunslinger, but it works when you have athletes like a Taylor Bradley that could take the top off or make something happen out of nothing, really. And so she's going to get opportunities, and I think this Arapahoe offense in general, they're going to get opportunities to go score, and it'll be interesting to see if they can keep up offensively for sure. After that, I want to say maybe a week later, they played Chaparral. Last year against Chaparral wasn't really a great game. This year, I think both teams are returning a pretty decent amount here. As far as 5A playoff teams go, they haven't been as affected as some of the other top playoff teams and contenders in the state. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I would expect a closer game. This is a team that has a lot of athletes over there, so a big game, both offensively and defensively, would go a long way, but I think especially offensively. And then on the 22nd of September, they play Ralston Valley, a team, like I've said in other episodes, has a good defense over there, and I know they're scheming something up to score quite a bit, but defensively, I think that is definitely their identity, defense first, and playing good defense at that. And so there's going to be DBs like an Ashlyn Callahan over there that, she's going to have to figure out how to beat. And it's going to be interesting to see how those matchups go. So we'll see about all that. And then obviously they play in the Centennial League. So you got Grandview with Brooke Sullivan over there. You have Cherry Creek with that offense, Addie Beck, like we talked about on the last episode. They're going to get a lot of teams and shootouts here. This Arapahoe team, they're going to have to score a lot of points this season to be competitive. And they have a weapon, I think, in Taylor Bradley, who is one of their better athletes. She's a home run hitter. Like I said, if you get her the ball, she's going to go off eventually. And so you got to just trust that and just get her the football and get her touches there. And I definitely expect that to happen. I probably expect her to go over 1,000 yards and have double-digit touchdowns again this season. And then defensively, hoping that she gets to be a little bit more productive in that rushing rotation. But regardless, I think she's a game breaker. She's somebody that you got to keep an eye on if you're an opposing defense. And then for Arapahoe, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how she contributes to this team, the second-year team here moving forward. So either way, best of luck to Taylor Bradley and Arapahoe ahead of this 2025 campaign. Alrighty, now the rest of the athletes that we are going to talk about were all freshmen last year. So let's go ahead and start with this one. The athlete out of Lakewood, Caroline Bane, played everything: quarterback, receiver, linebacker, I think a little bit safety, DB. I mean, she did it all, and it reflects in her stats. She had 692 passing yards. Not super efficient, though. 1 touchdown, 9 picks. Had 176 rushing yards, and then 74 receptions for 1,008 yards. Only 2 receiving touchdowns, but on defense had 47 tackles and 13 interceptions. Leaders in a lot of those stats for her team in Lakewood, who really struggled last season. And I think one of the lone bright spots was this freshman, Caroline Bane, who was just a great athlete that was productive, and I don't think you could argue with that. I think her most productive game was against Littleton, where she had 10 receptions for 160 yards and a touchdown. Defensively, also had 7 tackles, flagpoles, and 2 interceptions. Against Bear Creek, had another great game, 10 receptions, 153 yards, 47 rushing yards, 63 passing yards, and a passing touchdown, and had 7 tackles and 5 pass deflections. Out of the 13 games I believe that Lakewood play, she had a pick in about 10 of those, so very consistent there. Love to see that. Really love to see that. So there you go. Those are her stats. But let's talk about her film a little bit here. I think her biggest strength is that she's versatile. She has thrown, ran, and catched the football on offense. Defensively, they move her around. I think they settled a little bit more on her at safety. And so you love to see a freshman just get all the opportunities to play the different positions and be productive there too. So love seeing that. As far as physical standards go, she's a taller player with decent ball skills there. And by the way, as a safety, which is what she played mostly on defense, as the season went on, she did a good job being aware of the receivers while watching the quarterback's eyes and reacting pretty well. That led to a lot of those interceptions. So there you go. Versatile player, taller player with decent ball skills, and then I really liked where she was at awareness-wise as a safety. Now, areas of improvement. Would like to continue to see her develop as a receiver. Route running is the thing that could definitely be improved. Just crisper cuts, head fakes would go a long way. She is definitely rounding out a lot of these routes here. I just need to see better route running, and I think she will have it going into this next season. I'd also like to see her be a little bit more consistent as a whole. I think there are lapses, especially on defense, where she will miss flags or just like not run a route at full speed, and maybe that's just expecting or not expecting the ball to go to her. But I think consistency wise, if you want to be someone that could play on the next level, take your game to the next level here, you need to play at the same speed in game and be competitive there. And so I just want to see more consistency. I think since she's a young player, as she settles into her role over at Lakewood and is not doing a million things, she will find that consistency and she will be even more dangerous. So either way, rooting for her. I think she's a good raw athlete that can do a lot of things. It's going to be interesting to see how she develops as a player going into 2025. Like I said, no offers for any of these freshmen so far, but some potential big games. Lakewood plays in a really tough league with, I want to say it's like Ralston Valley, Chatfield, Columbine, all those squads. I think A West is also in that league, and that's tough as is. But, this team really struggled last year in general as well. And so we'll see what happens there. I think all of their league games will be huge. If she could string together a couple big games against those squads in their league, that would be just fine. One game that I think will be interesting that's not a league game, though, is against Regis Groff. That is a new flag football team. Maybe a potential win for Lakewood early on in the season. We'll see what happens. But either way, very interested in seeing what Caroline Bane does this season, whether she's still going back and forth between all the positions. Maybe she plays a little bit of quarterback, which, by the way, I think she has the physical ability to play it. I think she needs to continue to work on her accuracy, like consistency wise, and her timing, but definitely has the arm power and the athleticism to, make some things happen over there. So I didn't want to completely rule her out as a quarterback. I think she's a great athlete all around. As she settles on a position, we're going to really see how she develops moving forward and what that ceiling could be for her. Either way, rooting for Caroline Bane and Lakewood ahead of their 2025 season and wishing them all the best of luck. By the way, I think Caroline Bane made our all-freshman team, as well as this next player that we're going to talk about, really next two players. But this player, she's out of Arvada West, started at linebacker last season for this team that won state 2 years ago, and that is Harper Tillman, the standout freshman linebacker for them. I believe she was also a newcomer of the year candidate as well. But Harper Tillman, as a freshman, starting for a team like that has a lot of depth and experience everywhere. A lot of those seniors that just graduated, they could also play linebacker. So I think it's very impressive that Harper Tillman kind of went ahead and carved out her own role for an Arvada West team that is so prestigious. But last season, very productive, 92 tackles, 7 interceptions, and a sack here. Let's just go ahead and look at some of the big games that she had. Defensively against Mountain Vista, that was the second game of the season, so in the regular season that is. She had second career high in flag pulls with 8. The other time she had 8 was against Mullen, and then I think the most she had was 9 against Valor Christian on October 9th, so that was a big one. Had a couple interceptions throughout the year too. Had a nice one against a Legend in that first game that kind of really spiraled that game out of control for Legend, so that was huge. In the first game against Valor, she had another pick. Also got picks against Lakewood, Columbine, Valor again, Green Mountain, who had a dynamic offense last year, and then I believe this is Douglas County picking off Jillian Cabral. So, playing linebacker and being able to make these plays, that's absolutely huge. I mean, this was a defense that had Sarah Walker over there and many other Arvada West players that are going to make our watch list, and she really separated herself in a stacked locker room over there. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the film here. Got to watch her live those first 2 games against both Legend as well as Mountain Vista, and then obviously got to see her play against Mountain Vista at State Live, and then I went ahead and rewatched that state championship just to see how she fared against a elite running quarterback like Ariana Akey. And so this is kind of what I got from all of that. I think her strengths for sure is that she is a pretty reliable flag puller for someone her age with that experience. I think, consistency wise, she's in a pretty good spot. That should definitely improve year by year, but I think she's in a good base level spot right now. I also think she has solid ball skills and will force turnovers, will go ahead and catch the ball if they happen to throw it her way, and she's able to undercut it. I think she catches the ball really well, and I think going into next year too, she is somebody that could maybe take on a bigger role on the offense, as this is an offense that graduates 2 of their top receivers here. Now, they're still pretty deep because it's A West, right? But would love to see her get more touches there. And then something I really like is her closing speed and acceleration. At linebacker, it's special, right? I think against a lot of quarterbacks, she could give them a lot of fits as a QB spy, and that's something that really makes her special, separating her from other players in the country that play linebacker and whatnot. Now, with that being said, let's talk about areas of improvement here. I would like to see her play with a little bit more anticipation when playing the pass and just be a bit more physical when holding down the middle of the field, as she did play a lot of middle linebacker for A West against Mountain Vista at State. Honestly, I think there were times she was a little bit passive. Now, that is a very good offense over there with someone like Ariana Akey. You have to ID her all the time, and you also have a player like Braylon Looney who you have to get physical with because she's going to bring it, and if you don't bring it, then that's just the wrong spot that you want to be at for that game. So a lot of things to keep in mind, but I think as she continues to grow as a player, it's going to almost become second nature. And so with that being said, I think she can definitely be more aggressive in breaking up passes, getting hands in there, attacking the hands. Would love to see more of that. I think doing that on a more consistent basis will set the tone for a defense. And, going into next year, there's going to be a lot of players that graduate. You're going to need players like a Harper Tillman to set the tone, something that the great Sarah Walker did in her years for Arvada West, being a physical defensive player. And so would love to see her get more physical, get in there, right? Undercut some of these passes, get a hand in there, attack these passes, and even try to go ahead and bump someone and get an interception too. And I get it. I mean, playing middle linebacker and whatnot, you want to make the right decision. You don't want to gamble too much. You just want to make the play. I totally get that. But as a starter going into her second year, you want to see some improvements here. Now, it's not gambling, right? If you do your research, your game research, all that, see the film, look at the film, and, really improve that game awareness, then it's really not gambling if you know what the offense is going to do or what they want to do. And if you're there to go ahead and shut that down, take away those looks, be physical with receivers at the point of attack when catching a football, that's going to go a long way in bringing her game to the next level. Because right now, I think she's a great athlete. She is a pretty sure flag puller. She is athletic enough and plays a zone well enough to get some pretty solid interceptions. I think she has some good hands. But I think for her to really take that next step as a football player, she has to be physical, attack those hands, get hands in there to intercept it, and, take that next step forward. Right? I think it's really hard to stand out as a linebacker, especially in flag football, but middle linebackers that have a knack for winning one-on-one matchups and forcing turnovers always stand out. And when it comes to opportunities on the next level, that is what's going to separate her from other linebackers. And I think she already does a lot of good things. It's really just stacking on top of those and continuing to get better at that position. And then lastly, versatility is something I would like to see her improve on slightly. I would like to see her get more involved on the offense as a rotational player. Did not catch a lot of passes last season, but also it was a very stacked receiver room last year. Even going into this year, it's a little bit crowded, but hoping for more opportunities to make more of an impact on offense. I think next level programs really value players that could play both ways and be great playing both ways, being versatile like that. And, having seen Harper Tillman play a little bit of 7-on-7 in the offseason, I know that she does have that ability. And so we'll see about that. But altogether, I think she's in a great spot as a freshman. She is, I think there's another player that we're going to talk about here soon here that went to state, but there's not many freshman starters in the state that helps bring their team to a state championship, right? So she already has great experience that other players just don't have right now, and that is something that's going to benefit her moving forward. Now, moving on, she does not have any offers, obviously, right now. She's just a freshman, but I think there will be some opportunities to put together some good game film. Specifically, right now, it's listed with them playing Mountain Vista on the 29th, Valor Christian as well. Really, their league in general, too, is going to be tough, but I think they're going to have plenty of opportunities to play some tough teams. But Mountain Vista, they have Ariana Akey. They graduate some. Arvada West obviously graduates some. It would be really interesting to see if she could take that next step as a player against a team like Mountain Vista and really challenge a great dual threat quarterback, one of the best in the country, in Ariana Akey. That's a key matchup for her. Speaking of other key matchups, though, they play Valor Christian. Last season, Arvada West was really in Valor Christian's head, I felt. I feel like every time they played, Valor just forgot how to play flag football, and they just played a different brand than how they played other teams, which is interesting. And so going into this season, we'll see what happens. I assume Valor gets over that hump and gets over that mental block. We'll see. They still got some great athletes over there. The Prinzo sisters, they're going to do their thing. They're going to be active. And so for Harper Tillman playing linebacker, she's going to have to help out an offense that is replacing a great quarterback in Sailor Swanson with, I assume, Emerson Drake, and then replacing receivers like a Sarah Walker, Molly Shellpepper. And so there's going to be some growing pains early on for Arvada West, and I really feel like they're going to lean on their defense to hold it down as they figure it out. And so it's going to be important that players like a Harper Tillman take that next step forward and lead this team into the next era. And so we're really going to see what happens. I am super excited for her. I think she's really just getting started. Shout out the rest of her family as well. Saint, our guy over there at A-West, Atticus, who is one of the best in the entire state here. And by the way, I think just committed to a D1. So it's in the genes, right? But this is Harper Tillman's story. She's going to make it the way she wants it. And, already she has been to more football state championships than her brother. Could that change the season? Maybe. And that could be really exciting. Who knows, right? But regardless, we'll see what happens going into this 2025 campaign. Best of luck to Harper Tillman, and best of luck to Arvada West here in the fall of 2025. All right, now this next player also made state, but was a huge part of this state championship appearance team in TCA, and that is the athlete from there, Reagan Harter. Last season, she played all over, receiver, linebacker, rusher, a little bit of DB as well. She did it all. She was a big reason why this TCA offense was so dangerous and why this defense could also give some teams some fits as well. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's talk about the stats. Offensively, only 30 receptions, but went for 871 yards and 12 receiving touchdowns on 30 receptions. That basically means every third reception she was taken to the house, which is crazy. Then defensively had 53 flag pulls, also had 10 sacks, but it's worth noting she got those 10 sacks in 5 games, which is crazy. And then an interception and 7 pass deflections here. She is a game breaker, a home run hitter, really on both sides of the ball. She can ruin a team's night with just how good she is, how athletic she is. She has great speed and agility, and TCA last year really knew how to utilize that. Now, some big games they had against Air Academy: 3 receptions, 128 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns in that game. I want to say that was her best statistical, at least offensively, game that she had in the regular season. Against Green Mountain, though, she would have herself an absolute game to get them to state, by the way. 2 receptions, only 2, but both went for touchdowns and 95 receiving yards there total. So 2 receptions for 95 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. But defensively, she was a menace. 7 tackles. They also put her in at rusher in this game, and she had 4 sacks, and that would be enough to go ahead and send TCA to the state championship game, where unfortunately they would play Mountain View, and she just did not have a good game. Only 1 reception for 8 yards, and then defensively 5 flag pulls, a sack, a hurry, and that is pretty much it. A very quiet state championship for Reagan Harter, but she's only getting started. Last season was a freshman. This year, she's a sophomore, and she's only going to get better. Last season, she was a speedster. She was somebody that could break open games. I think she still has more in the tank and can continue to get better. I think she's legit one of the best athletes in the entire state. Now, speaking of strengths, that is definitely one of them. She's an elite athlete, like I said, who's a home run hitter. When she gets the ball in her hands in any capacity, she's dangerous, and she is a threat to return it to the house every single time, whether it's offense, whether it's defense. Like I said, she just has that elite speed and agility to just go ahead and break one loose at any given moment. So whenever she gets the ball in her hands, she is dangerous. On top of that, I think she has great ball skills. She makes some tough, concentrated catches here and there, and I think she's a true deep threat with her hands. She is an over-the-shoulder catching machine for TCA. If you put it up there, she's going to come down with the ball. So she's a great deep threat to have, someone that's super reliable, and if you get the ball to her more, which I feel like they could have got her more focused looks, she's going to make something happen, and it's going to start with her catching the ball, though. And then lastly, defense versatility. Just versatility in general. She moves everywhere on offense. Defensively, she moves up and down between linebacker and rusher, and I think she's equally elite at both, and she's an absolute monster and will chaotically disrupt any offense pretty much from anywhere. She has that middle locked up if she's playing linebacker. If she's rushing, she is very, very good, very skilled as well, retrace very naturally, and, just put quarterbacks in very uncomfortable positions over there. I think she's arguably the best rusher in all of the 4A classification, one of the best in all of Colorado, honestly. And like I said, just getting started here as a freshman. And so with all that being said, I really feel like she is playing at a high level, both at receiver and rusher. I think if she was to go play college flag right now, she would be an impact player for a lot of teams. That is how high I am on Reagan Harter. Now, some areas of improvement. I would like to see her get stronger and be more comfortable playing through contact. I do feel like one of the reasons why Mountain View was so good and took her out of her game was because they were able to rough her up a little bit, within the boundaries, but I do think she struggles just a little bit making catches through contact. She will make concentrated catches, she will make tough sideline catches, high point catches, but I think whenever there's a little bit of contact, she is visibly uncomfortable with it, right? And so I think as she continues to, hit the offseason hard year by year, that's something that's going to naturally resolve itself, I would say. And then last but not least, I feel like I've said this about every single athlete on this episode, but route running, in my opinion, could be cleaner. Better breakdowns, head fakes, crisper routes to get separation. I think right now she gets away with a lot of just being faster and, better out of her breaks, like faster out of her breaks, right? But footwork-wise, you could fix a lot of things there and become even more efficient than where she's at, right? Consistency is key in this one more than anything. I think there are times where, she runs great routes, and then there are times where it's just not the best. And, as a receiver, every route has to look identical, and that's just something that she's going to continue to improve on as she continues to play this game here. To be fair, a lot of the areas of improvements feel really nitpicky, but I do think specifically her playing through contact and getting stronger will get her to that next level. I don't think there were many defenses that they played this season that really, really challenged her physically, other than like a Valor Christian and a Mountain View, and those are both games they lost, right? And so would love to see her continue to bring her game to the next level, and I think she will. I think she's really just getting started. As of right now, no offers. I will confirm that there is a lot of college interest though, but with her only being a freshman, still a long way to go. It's like 3, maybe 2 or 3 years out from most colleges even thinking about players in her class, but there's definitely colleges interested. Just putting that out there. Now, some big games this season. TCA, I think as a whole, they are really looking to go back to state and win it. I think if they don't do that, and I know they got a new coaching staff and whatnot, then it's going to probably feel like a failure because you are bringing everyone back. I think Reagan Harter is a key part of that championship team, whether it's now or later, right? But I would say the window is open right now, and you cannot take that for granted. And so some big games this season to really see how they do. They play Green Mountain. It's a rematch on August 16th. Green Mountain obviously losing way more than TCA. I feel like they should still beat them by a decent amount, but I would also say it's a really cool opportunity to see Reagan Harter face off with another great freshman athlete over there in Marissa Van Gilder, who I would say is probably the other great freshman in this state here, at least from last year, now sophomores. And so that rivalry, I think, will be a very interesting game to watch right there. Then they go ahead and play Mountain View on September 6th. That's a team that also loses a lot of players. They're going to look very different like Green Mountain, but they got to go up there and play them. I think it's going to still be an interesting game here as, they're still coached the same way. They have great coaches up there. They won for a reason. We'll see how that goes. Then they go ahead and play Pomona here. I really feel like this is a game they should win. But Pomona, they have Jay Cordova. It'll be interesting to see how Reagan Harter does against her if she gets the chance to rush. Then they play Doherty. I think this is a key league game right here. Doherty was the team that beat them at the league championship. And, that was a very close game. I was at that game live and whatnot. Doherty, they do lose 2 of their best players, Alyssa Ramos and then Madeline Wittenborn Madison, I believe, who's now over at Campbellsville, their linebacker. Those are 2 tough losses, but they bring back the majority of their team just like TCA. That's going to be a good one right there. And then they play Valor Christian at the very end of the month. Valor returns everyone. And it's going to be a good game again, I would assume, this season. And I think that will really tell where TCA is at right before the playoffs. But regardless, I think Reagan Harter is going to have a good year. The bigger question is whether TCA is going to win state or not. I would consider them the favorites this year with everyone they bring back. But they also have a new head coach. They do retain their assistant coaches, right? So we'll see what that vibe is like, what happens this season. But I think they are posed for a championship run. And I don't know if you could say that about every single team we've talked about. I mean, Lakewood, I would consider them rebuilding. Arvada West, technically rebuilding, but they have good coaches. Maybe they could be a dark horse. Arapahoe should make the playoffs again. But I think legitimately TCA is a team that should be contending this year. And they're going to do that by relying on athletes like Reagan Harter to carry him there. And not just Reagan Harter, but I mean other athletes as well. I think Reagan Harter taking a lot of attention will do a lot to open up other athletes doing some things for TCA. And so we'll see what happens regardless. Shout out Reagan Harter, rooting for her, and best of luck to TCA this upcoming 2025 campaign. Alrighty, and that will do it for this episode. I feel like this was a very short episode here. About 10 minutes every player. I feel like I hit on everything that I wanted to talk about. By the way, it is currently 1:52 a.m. on Sunday, so I'm going to go ahead and sleep here soon. Once again, thank you for all the support. We appreciate all the love. We're going to be releasing more watch lists. We're going to be releasing more player spotlights, so make sure that you are tuning in for those. I'm your host, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V. Eternally grateful. We will catch you later.